Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, for the last, I think it was about 20 or 25 minutes, I endured a similar charade that took place a few days ago. In presenting the motion, I indicated that it was meant for a particular period. It was meant for Christmas, and there was a certain reason why it's been done, and it has been done before. But as is customary, the leader of opposition business, he must read from the script that is prepared. He must repeat and mimic the actions and behavior of his leader. And so he comes to the Senate this morning with a premeditated, pre-planned assault on a measure that is customary, that has happened for a very long time. Even during COVID, when things were very bad, even when we had his government in office, and finds that everything is wrong with the measure, and now he wants Christmas in June. Christmas must now be extended to June. Madam President, I want to remind the leader of opposition business that once, not too long ago, I sat in the opposition chair where Senator Charles sits today, and stood and debated on that very motion when he sat in cabinet, and his government, I hope he's hearing me, the government that he was part of, came to this house 3 weeks, Madam President, a mere 3 weeks before Christmas, to pass that amendment. 3 weeks before Christmas, he was in cabinet. At that time, I remembered we had 6 opposition MPs who made the point that they were unfairly disadvantaged because, of course, in cabinet you would have known, so they had the opportunity to have ordered their toys, to have ordered everything. And it was unfair that they had no opportunity 3 weeks before Christmas to be able to make an effort to get anything for their constituents. But today, Madam President, the opposition will pretend that we have no memory and St. Lucians have forgotten. We are coming here in November to make an amendment that they made 3 weeks before Christmas. In December, I was sitting on that bench, and I remembered standing. I was not an MP, so I couldn't speak for constituents, but I spoke on what that meant to the people of the country. And he finds that it is too late, and it should be extended to June. Well, Madam President, just for the benefit of this chamber, I wanted to remind the leader of opposition business of this particular issue. Then he went on to mention that in the UK and in the diaspora, people may be finding it difficult to be able to even send something across. That is an interesting point, because he had just indicated that it appears that in St. Lucia is the only place where you have issues with the cost of living and where people have difficulty in getting goods and services because we are doing so bad. But then in the same breath, he can raise an issue about other countries that have similar struggles. So it is obvious that we're not the only ones that inflation is affecting. In fact, Madam President, he went on in his very same presentation to mention, which I don't know if he intended to, but sometimes, you know, when you say certain things, you might involuntarily make certain comments, that there is a global inflation problem. Well, there is a global inflation problem, full stop. Global does not reside or does not mean it's a St. Lucia inflation problem. Inflation affects everyone. So it was very interesting that after having bashed the government and made everything seem that, you know, the only reason we have inflation is because St. Lucia Labour Party is in government in St. Lucia, that he could have mentioned that there is a global inflation problem. And to suggest that the people in the UK may have issues even sending barrels. Well, that definitely took care of his first argument. Madam President, in traditional fashion, in his usual fashion, not sticking to the motion, and I realized you had to pull him back. He tried to go all around the world and find other topics that have been ventilated on their platforms to bring into this chamber. And so he went after salaries and saying that instead of giving concessions on barrels, and I don't want to quote him, I paraphrase here, that we should be getting better salaries for St. Lucians. We have stood in this House, Madam President, and we have agreed that our government is not in any way opposed.
Madam President, I rise on a point of order. The member is misquoting me and misleading the House. I never said that you ought to give the people of St. Lucia better salaries. I said to you that right now, the salaries have not kept a pace with the inflation problem. We've seen marches in the UK where people are saying that they need a salary increase.
Is that a point of clarification?
I'm on the floor.
Take a seat, Senator.
Right? I've said that.
I think you made the point, Senator. Yes, thank you very much. You may take your seat.
Thank you, Madam President. And you notice I took my seat immediately. When you instructed me, I sat immediately because I respect the chair and I hope the opposition starts to pay attention. Leader of Government Business, take your seat. I sat. Madam President, subject to correction, I may have not used his exact words, but the point was made that we should do something about salaries. Let me put it this way. And I'm saying to the Leader of Opposition Business that this government is the government that after his government negotiated and did not pay the increase to the public servants, we have done so. We have done so, even in the face of the inflation and the difficulties that we face today, and all the debt that we've inherited from his government. We have done so. And now negotiations are in the next phase. Madam President, I want to remind the opposition, Leader of Opposition Business, that it is this government on Wednesday, not even Thursday, on Wednesday last week, our pensioners received $600 increase. This is the government that did that, understanding the situation. And our teachers in August received $600 additional dollars to the $5 that they have, $1,100 in their TMA, teacher materials allowance. Of course we understand that the teachers will need to spend a little more if they have to be able to deal with the materials. This is the government that has done so. And even if he tries to play the Grinch for Christmas to give a gloom and doom picture, this Grinch role will not work, because our St. Lucian culture, our St. Lucian folk will continue to celebrate and enjoy their Christmas. So don't come here and try to create a shadow, cast a shadow over Christmas and say that they're not going to have a Merry Christmas and suggest in any way that Christmas is not going to be what it should be. Madam President, all of a sudden, the opposition, not only on this matter, but on other platforms and on other issues, have assumed or are trying, they cannot because they can only trying to assume the role of the champions of the poor, the champions of the less fortunate, the champions of single mothers. I heard the Leader of Opposition Business, not in his chair as usual, perhaps going to take his calls and instructions to come back for the next motion. I'm just speculating here, Madam President. Suggesting that they are the champions of poor people, the champions of the less fortunate. And he related his story with the single mother, was it? He met in Dennery. That's his story, so I can't doubt that it happened. And the single mother with the child and what happens to her and so on. Madam President, I want to remind the Leader of Opposition Business. I want to just ask him, because I will never repeat those words. What did his then Prime Minister and leader say about single mothers who are having more than one child? We have not forgotten, Madam President. So today you want to come and posture as if you are the champion of single mothers and the poor. We understand the plight of single mothers and the less fortunate on this side. And that is why we have put policies in place to assist them. That is why we have paid attention to mothers, pregnant mothers, getting certain medical checkups and the ultrasounds without having to pay. We understand that. We understand that. And so before the opposition takes a motion that is simply meant to create an opportunity during the festive season and drags it all over the place, we want to remind them that the things that they're trying to point to this government are the things that they would have done. So, Madam President, without taking on all the other irrelevant issues that were raised on this debate, because we have a long day, I want to just mention two more things. One, that the leader of opposition business made a particular reference, and he likes to use the social and economic review. He believes that the social and economic review is available to him only. And I have, on several occasions in this chamber, I have showed him up when he tries to misquote information from the social and economic review. He has gone downstairs to the library and couldn't come back with the information. And today, he uses the social and economic review, tried to say that we had the highest inflation rate in the Caribbean, but when I seemed to have been prepared to challenge it, he said, no, the third highest. But you know what he didn't remember to say, Madam President? That St. Lucia, aside from Guyana, who now I know that they have oil, St. Lucia's economy has registered the highest growth rate in the OECS. He didn't say that. He'll point to the inflation. He tried the first, he said highest and then moved to third. So I don't know which one it is. But he didn't tell you about the growth. And this is why we are able to inject some of what is happening back into the people's hands and in their pockets. Finally, Madam President, I heard the leader of opposition business making reference to STEP. What we call STEP, the short-term employment program or stimulus program. I am bewildered that any member of this opposition can stand up and call for STEP to be given to all and not only one group of persons, but everybody. First of all, they are the biggest critics of the program. They actually went on a campaign against it and found everything wrong with it. But they found it useful to be able to change the name and give benefits to certain people. And I want to remind the opposition that in this particular government's case, there are 17 MPs. 17. 2 of them are opposition MPs. And I live in a constituency where an opposition MP is the elected member. And I can tell you that all 17 of these MPs receive allocations for that program. All 17. And he can go in the next few weeks when this program begins, he can go around the constituencies and he will see St. Lucians who support both political parties at work and benefiting from that program. That's a fact. One of his, the MP from Choiseul Saltibus even stood up and gave an account, quoted the figure that he was receiving for his community development allowance. He could have stood there in a Labour Party government and say what his allocation is. Was it 100,000 per quarter? He could stand up here as an opposition MP and say he's getting $100,000 per quarter. That's what, 400,000 for the year? Minimum. And all the other social programs that this government runs, they are run for the entire 17. Every seat in this chamber is represented and gets the allocation. And so, to come and suggest when you are debating a motion to amend to allow barrels to come in with certain incentives, to go around and talk about all of those things, it really tells me that the opposition is not willing to debate the issues. They are not interested in that. They have their own script, and I know that during the course of today, what was not achieved in the lower house, they will try to achieve. But I will remind the opposition that we are still focused and we are still here And we will make sure that anytime they stray away, anytime they provide any mistruth or any attempt to misrepresent the information, we will be right there to put it on track. And so, Madam President, I want to again remind this chamber that this amendment has a particular purpose. It is to provide some kind of relief during the festive season, which does not extend to June. Christmas in St. Lucia, as far as I know, is in December and has continued to be so. And if the opposition feels that it needs to be extended to June, what they need to do is to win the election, become the government, be around the country, and extend it year-round if they want. I will enjoy it too. Okay? So I wish they would do that, and don't come to the House to try to suggest to St. Lucians that Christmas is in June, because Christmas still remains in December. I thank you, Madam President.